He was dazzling. You could not be better than Sugar Ray Robinson. It's as if God said, let me create the perfect fighter.
Hey fight fans, welcome back to Greatest Hits here on Boxing Legends TV. Today, we have a very special video indeed, by far the most requested video on my channel, and for obvious reasons.
Even Sugar Ray Robinson past his peak was just about better than anybody.
Sugar Ray Robinson is regarded by the majority of boxing fans and historians as the greatest boxer of all time. The unprecedented speed, combined with the punching power that seems almost impossible for a man weighing 160 pounds to let off. And then you tie that in with the footwork of a ballerina and a genius-level ring IQ, and you're left with pure boxing perfection.
Big left hook with Gene Fuller. What's prettier than that? That's the greatest thing I ever saw.
As some of the followers of my channel will know, I personally do not hold Robinson as the pound-for-pound greatest of all time. I actually have him fourth behind Muhammad Ali, Harry Greb, and Sam Langford. But this is mainly due to the fact I rate a fighter purely off their resume, and while Robinson's resume is outstanding to say the least, I think it's not quite up to the standards of the guys I'd put above him.
Come to Muhammad Ali, I am the man.
But when anyone asks me, who's the greatest boxer you've ever seen? Or who is your personal favorite fighter in history? The answer is always the same. Sugar Ray Robinson.
Oh, I saw him at his best, and he was the best fighter ever lived, pound for pound.
For any of the younger viewers, or slightly less informed boxing fans that haven't had the chance to get a good look at Sugar Ray yet, we promise you by the end of this video, you will understand why he is held in such high regard. If you guys do enjoy the video, please remember to help us out by smashing that like button, as we've really gone all out to bring you some of the highest quality Robinson fights. Before turning professional in 1940, Robinson had an amateur career spanning 85 fights, and yes, he won them all. Most by knockout, scoring a staggering 69 with 40 in the first round. Not a bad way to announce yourself in the professional ranks. Unfortunately, as some of you may know, the first 10 years of Robinson's career was either not filmed, or film had been badly damaged beyond repair. Which just seems almost criminal when you glance over the resume and take a look at some of the great Hall of Fame boxers he beat in that time. The list includes Sammy Angut 3 times, Fritzy Zivic twice, all-time great Henry Armstrong, and of course, the epic 5-fight series with Jake LaMotta, where we saw Robinson lose his first and only bout in 132 fights. Just an absolutely stunning number, considering the fighters he was competing against on a regular basis. In that time, he won the welterweight and middleweight world title. And, bear in mind, there was only one recognized champion in each weight division, unlike the ridiculous amount of belts that people hold today.
Take your little belt home and hold your trousers up, because that's all that's good for. You ain't got no good belts, man. I've got the best belts. I've got the best. I'll be fighting for a WBO as well. So what's that? That's international. I'll tell you what I've done. I won the WBO International Continental, what you want to call it. I ain't even got the belt yet for it, because I don't want it.
Fortunately, Robinson's talent was being recognized beyond the American border, and in 1950 he decided to venture out and display his talent across various European countries. November 27, 1950, Robinson, now with a record of 118 fights with 1 loss, took on the best middleweight that France had to offer, Jean Stark.
The fighting machine really gets cracking. In 121 professional fights, Robinson has lost only 1. Hard hitting and clever, he's got everything. There goes a right and down he goes. He's right. But judging by what we've seen, the other guy ought to get the long end of the purse. He'll need it for repairs.
December 9, 1950. Just a little over a week from his previous contest in France, Robinson ventured over to Belgium where he obliterated the Dutch champion Luc Van Dam in 4 rounds.
That's the trouble. And here he comes as Sugar Ray Robinson gets in a killer. Van Dam's return to action is purely technical. Just a moment till Sugar is ready. And there it goes. And Van Dam has had it. They never come up when they go down like that.
Just 7 days later, on December 16, 1950, Robinson was keeping himself busy and wiped the floor with French contender Jean Walzac, this time fighting in Switzerland. If you weren't counting, that's 3 fights in 3 different countries in 19 days.
Blows. Walzac fights back, but there's no answer when Sugar Ray starts punching. Robinson avoids. Walczak follows, but a hard right to the stomach and whoosh! Did you see that uppercut? The Frenchman is game, but he's no match for the greatest fighting machine of the day. Round 6. Walczak is groggy now, ripe for the kill. A right and a left to the chin, and Walczak is down again.
Before heading back to America, Robinson destroyed the German middleweight contender Hans Stretz in his hometown of Berlin as a little Christmas present on December 25th, 1950. Possibly the most standout fight of Robinson's career took place on February 14th, 1951. The current middleweight champion of the world, Jake LaMotta, was the only man that had been able to defeat Sugar Ray to this point. He was the man that stood for the working class people of America. His style was almost like that of a street fighter. He had the will to win and a chin made of pure iron. Plus, his previous contest with Robinson had always made for good viewing up to this point. But this fight, known as the St. Valentine's Massacre, was just about one of the most hellacious beatings ever seen in a boxing ring. Robinson had one goal from the opening bell, and that was to seek and destroy.
By Jake LaMotta, Robinson has got it back. Look at the shot! Oh, great foot left hand! He wants the fight, and he nails it to the body, bangs the wrist, back upstairs. Look at Ray Robinson! What a terrific boxer! Look at the shots he's landing. This has turned out to be a pro round for Jake LaMotta, who doubles into the rope. Wants to hold the left hand high, but he can't. Look at him bang those ribs again. Oh, I can feel that myself. Oh, another one right at the top of the rope. He does not want. Look at these shots. He's being hit at will by the great welterweight champion, who's the boxing of the middleweight champion of the world, I believe. Look at the shots being landed at will because of all things. Oh, look at that right hand. What a shot. The Thor wants to stop the fight, and he has stopped it. It's all over. We're brand new world middleweight champion. His name is Sugar Ray Robinson.
July 10th, 1951. Robinson finally met his match in the ring. The British European middleweight champion Randolph Turpin had no thoughts about letting Robinson steamroll him as he had all the other European fighters while on his second tour of Europe. Robinson had traveled back to France, Belgium, Switzerland, and Germany, but it was his first trip to England where he suffered his first defeat in 91 fights. In what would be a very scrappy contest from the opening bell, Turpin neutralized Sugar Ray's offense by tying him up close and landing hard shots on the inside for 15 rounds.
Two men affectionately embrace after 15 hard-fought rounds.
At this time in his career, Robinson was a mainstream celebrity in America. His loss against Turpin was big news and had people questioning whether he would ever get back to his best.
I promise you all I'll do the best that I can to bring the middleweight championship back here in America again.
But as all great champions do, he wasted no time rematching Turpin and set the record straight as he scored a 10th round knockout.
Rounds 6 and 7. Robinson, although bleeding badly from a cut over the eye, won rounds 8 and 9. An explosive combination hurts Turpin. A crushing right hand sends Turpin to the canvas here in round 10. Referee Goldstein is watching the action closely and steps in to protect Turpin from receiving further punishment. Sugar Ray has done it. Robinson has regained the middleweight title by stopping courageous Randy Turpin.
I'm very happy to have regained the middleweight championship of the world.
April 16th, 1952. Hall of Fame middleweight Rocky Graziano finally got the bout he had been calling for years. Robinson dazzled him with beautiful combinations in the first 2 rounds, but in round 3 he got caught by a snapping left hook as he moved in for the KO. Robinson got up at the speed of light and within a minute flattened the Iron Chin Graziano with one of the most devastating right hands the boxing world has ever seen.
So Graziano has scored the first knockdown. And there goes his mouthpiece, and Graziano hits the canvas. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
December 9th, 1955. Robinson by now was clearly not quite the fighter he'd been 10 years prior. He lost his middleweight crown in 1952 to Joey Maxim and retired to become a dancer and actor. 3 years later, he returned with a vengeance and regained the middleweight crown, once again proving he still had the speed and power to be pound for pound best fighter as he knocked out Bobo Olsen in the second round.
In his second fight, there's a good left hook from Robinson, the supreme boxer. Added to that, he's got a great punch. The great left hook from Robinson, another left hook, and Olsen's over. He's flat on his back. The referee takes up the count. Olsen's struggling, he rolls over. I don't think he's going to beat this count. And he's out. Sugar Ray Robinson at 35 years old has regained the World Middleweight Championship.
From this point on, it was clear Robinson was no longer the unbeatable fighting machine from a few years prior. But if his career would have started here, he still would have went down as one of the all-time greats. He lost and won back his crown to Gene Fullmer, scoring a knockout in the rematch that went on to be known as the Perfect Punch.
His fifth-round knockout of Fullmer was called the Perfect Punch.
But he was so smooth, if you do something wrong, you would counteract it. Big left hook with Gene Fullmer. What's prettier than that? That's the greatest thing I ever saw.
Later, he lost and regained his title once again, this time to the hands of Carmen Basilio, in what were both great fights where both men won by very narrow decisions. Another 4 years in the ring saw Ray rack up most of the losses you see on his record today. He tried desperately to win back his middleweight crown, but at this point, he wasn't merely 20% of the fighter he was in his prime. Sugar Ray hung them up for good in 1965 after losing a decision to Joey Archer. The crowd recognized and loved Robinson for all the great fights he put on in his 25-year career, and the beautiful send-off was enough to bring a tear to anyone's eye.
1 month after his final bout, thousands recalled the way it had been with a tribute to a native son. At long last, Sugar Ray took a final bow. Bert Sugar.
One time at the old garden, I overheard a father and son talking. The father was pointing at the garden marquee and telling his son, "That's the greatest." And one day the father said, "You're going to be able to tell your son that you saw the greatest. You saw Sugar Ray Robinson."
Ray Robinson, April 12, 1989. He was 67.
Whenever he fought, the world had a way of standing still. The center of the ring belonged to him.
Though his journey through life was a perilous adventure, his place in his sport is permanent. He has been judged the standard by which all boxers are measured. Ask those who saw him, and they'll tell you no one has ever been sweeter than Sugar Ray.